Anne, how are you? It is good to see you again. It has been a little while.
Yes, it has. I had COVID, so I was out of commission for about 3 weeks, and plus like another week to get my energy back.
Wow. So yeah, well, my sympathies to you. Kathleen had COVID as well, and I know it's absolutely no fun. But you were all vaccinated and boosted and everything, and you still well, good. You know that it didn't hit you as hard as it could have.
Yeah, I just had to just treat my symptoms and just rest. So I watched an enormous amount of movies.
Excellent.
Yeah,
The positive side of getting COVID is you don't have to make excuses for sitting around watching movies all the time because it's all
yeah,
you can do.
exactly. It was
Yeah.
guilt free.
They should have included that as part of like the COVID recovery process. It's like watch lots of old movies. It's like an important part of the process.
Absolutely. It makes you feel better.
Yeah, always works for me.
Yeah, me too.
So you look great. I'm glad to see you back. I've got all my hair cut off almost. Working on a new look. My hair was thinning, and so Kathleen says the secret is to cut it even shorter, and then it will work better. So I did that today. This is it. I've had this haircut for mere hours, so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, it's
I
definitely the
kind of
shortest I've ever seen it.
Yeah, this is my summer haircut. Obviously, I won't be recording anything for TCM for a little bit. I think they would want it to grow back at least a tiny bit. Okay, I know we have a lot of great questions to get to today, but I'm going to start off by surprising you with a little something. This appeared mysteriously in my mailbox yesterday, and it was addressed to me, so I opened it. But inside, I found this. It says, Dear Mr. Eddie Muller, for your consideration, on behalf of the fans of Ask Eddie and Anne and their cats, in recognition of her work for said program and the Film Noir Foundation, we submit the enclosed. While you and everyone connected with the foundation and its work has our heartfelt gratitude and bottomless respect, we wanted Miss Hockens to know she is appreciated in this small way. With our warm regards, the fans of Ask Eddie and Anne and their cats. P.S. This is a major award. Now that's what it says, Anne. So I actually have no idea who the ringleaders are behind this, but I'm going to show you this now. But this is yours. But I have yet to be able to get it to you, so we'll be working on that. Okay.
Oh my gosh!
This is the Durier Award presented to Anne Hockens 2022, Est Amara Parvo Mundo, which, if my bad Latin serves me, it's a bitter little world in Latin. There you go. Est Amara Parvo Mundo.
Oh God!
There you go. It's quite
so
nice, and I'm
sweet.
sure
I'm
you
really
can. I'm sure
moved.
you can see there's
Oh.
you can decide which of your cats that is on the top of that. So I have that saved for you, and I am certain that whoever anonymously awarded you this, that they are watching right now, and I just want to tell them that packing job was unbelievable. It must have taken me 30 minutes, and I worked up a sweat just trying to get it unpacked. There was so much bubble wrap and tape around it. I felt like it wasn't this hard to get to the Maltese Falcon. So anyway, there you go, Anne.
Well, thank you. I'm really, really moved. That's so sweet of
You,
you.
it's well, whoever it is. I mean,
Whoever
it's
sent it, yes,
yes.
it's very. am very grateful. And it will actually, it's funny you said the Maltese Falcon because it will go up next to my Maltese Falcon.
Okay, very good. Yeah, and you are, that's pretty exciting. You are the only recipient of the Durier Award. So, the first and only recipient. I'm hoping that someone watching this, owns up to it and says who it was, but it's fantastic. So congratulations.
Thank you. I'm honored and very excited. And of course, I love the name, the Durier Award. So makes me very happy.
It's kind of perfect all the way around. It's the Durier Award. It's got a cat on top of it. It's good. It's definitely in recognition of you.
Absolutely.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. So should we roll here? Get going?
Yeah. Okay. Do you want me to get? I'll start.
Okay, you start, and we'll take it from there.
And this is from Johnny. I like the poster for North City 19, which is a nice variation on the Sunset Boulevard's original poster design. But I love the past North City posters, which you shot yourselves with your own characters in a film noir setup. Eddie, can you talk about the production of those posters? Who came up with the concept? Who shot them? Who are the actresses? And do you appear in all of them? And will you resume doing them in the future? By the way, my fave is North City 9, the one with the dame standing at the fireplace, a poker in her hand and a dead man at her feet, with the tagline, "Who's crazy now?"
Yes. Well, thanks, Johnny. I appreciate the appreciation. It's we love doing those posters. It's I always have said that the Noir City Festival in San Francisco begins with the poster. That's the process. Every year, Bill Selby, who has done all of them from the very beginning, the extremely talented Bill Selby, we sort of knock around ideas, concepts, and because I will generally come up with the theme of the festival, and then Bill and I will knock around the ideas for how can we depict the theme. And it was kind of interesting because we have done that for all but the first two festivals. Those were posters that Bill just created out of repurposing graphic elements. But then starting with the third one, where Shiva Sharifi was the model on the poster, we've shot them all ourselves, and with the fourth one, Genevieve Gerton was the model. That's when we started really having a lot of fun and playing around, and it's just we have a blast doing this stuff. So yes, the answer to Johnny's question is there will be another one. Bill and I are actually talking about it right now. What the concept will be for what will be the 20th anniversary celebration of Noir City. And most of the models originally, we didn't know. It was kind of, we would just look around for models, professional models, who had a look that fit with what we were trying to do. Then over time, it obviously morphed into something a little bit different. The whole concept changed because, as you know, Anne, because you go to the festival every year, Ms. Noir City ended up playing a role in the festival, whereas the first few times it was just thanks for doing the poster, that was great, and then we move on from there. But things changed a little bit early on, especially if the model was local and had additional talents, that we could exploit. And then sometimes it just ended up becoming someone I already knew. Like when Audra Wolfman was the model for 11, I can't remember these things now. I think 11 and 13, along with Evie Lovell. I mean, I know both of them. And then eventually models like Asia de Kudrow and Annabelle Zakaluk, who's been on several, were loyal patrons of the festival. And they would, so I had just seen them around, and eventually I just asked if they wanted to be on the poster because it seemed like fun. So there will be more. And I also, Johnny, thanks for appreciating the great job Bill did on what I call like the stopgap poster, because of COVID we couldn't arrange to shoot a new poster the way we normally do. So Bill and I just talked it through and did that kind of Sunset Boulevard inspired poster. So we'll be doing another one right now.
Yeah, and just so people know, excuse me, we do have prints of the posters available to purchase. So you can get those online at filmnoirfoundation.org.
Yes, and I think we have all of them. Interestingly, I think we have all of them except number 9, the one that he pointed out with Angela. Angela Ricconi was the model, and she was a wonderful Ms. Noir City. She had great. We didn't know her at all. We put an ad out, and she responded. And she was the Bone Girl on some rock station. Yeah. She was called the Bone Girl, and then she was just very adept on stage and was terrific to work with. So, hey, Angela, I hope you're watching. I hope you're doing well.
And I only have one poster that I have framed in my front room, which is Noir City 16, because that's my favorite poster we've done.
And which one is that?
It's the one in front of the Castro Theater.
Oh, the one in front of the Castro Theater, with the one with Annabelle, right?
It's Lucy in the
Lucy's in the box office, and Is it the one with just me and Lucy, or is it the one with Annabelle?
Teaser. So it's
the teaser poster, right?
Yeah, which is my favorite poster we've done.
I'm telling you, it comes in handy. Whenever we do a poster, we shoot like bonus stuff that just we get the idea out of the way, and then we shoot extra stuff just for fun, ideas that occur to us. And Bill had that very bright idea because that was another question Johnny had. From poster number 3, I guess that was the first one I appeared on with Shiva, where I was dead. I'm usually dead in the posters. Yeah. That's my Hitchcock cameo, but I am in most of them. But so I arrived on the set kind of dressed up in case there's some way that I can be worked into it beyond just a shadowy background or something. And Bill, said, stand next to the box office and smoke a cigarette. And we've gotten a lot of use out of that image. That's that shot just turned out so great. And that's where Bill's magic comes in, because obviously if you know the poster, he photoshopped in all sorts of really cool elements to make it look even more in period, like the Buy War Bonds poster on the box office and all this stuff. So Bill just has a really fun time doing all this stuff. So there, like I say, there's another one in the works. Okay. Robin from San Francisco asked us if any possibility of facilitating a noir festival using the same medium, Facebook, as we do for these shows. We'd select a number of films that are available through streaming or disc, and then spend a few evenings discussing the films. Questions or comments could be made by noir fans everywhere and shared and discussed by Noir City. Well, give it a thought. Thanks for hearing me out, Best. Well, now I don't know. It says Best Kim, and then it also says Robin. So I don't know if it's Kim Robin.
It's Kim.
It's Kim. Okay, yeah. Kim. Well, thanks, Kim. That is what I do for a living, despite it, without the interactive capabilities. So we'll see. I mean, nothing is out of the question. It's really, really hard to I don't want to turn this into a negative, but a lot of the films that are streaming now are sometimes streaming illegally. And so while they might be available to people to watch, it's not something that I'm in a position to use because I don't do that. I just, so if we did it, it would probably be with product that's ours, all the stuff we do with Flickr Alley. Because I did do this very, very early on in the COVID crisis. We did one of these where we showed, I think it was Too Late for Tears. We streamed Too Late for Tears, which with that I introduced, and then I answered questions at the end of the screening, and it went over pretty well. So I'm not saying it's out of the question, but I'm also not saying it's something that we're planning on doing. What do you think, Anne? Is that something that you'd like
I
to
think
see?
it'd be kind of cool. It'd be fun because we have a lot of people from all around the world that watch Ask Eddie, and of course couldn't travel for a festival. So it'd be kind of cool to be able to get everybody, or we just have people who just don't live somewhere where we have a festival.
I have entertained the idea, as weird as it is, of streaming the festival. Not the movies, but like doing a live stream. If we're showing something that I know is available, I thought it might be kind of fun to like live stream the intro and the something from the festival and then come back to it at the end, so people could just be at the festival on their laptops. I mean,
That'd be
that's
cool. Yeah.
But you know me, as I've proven on this platform many times, I am technically inept. So somebody else has to step forward and say, "Hey, I know how to do that. Give me a call and we'll help you set that up." So I hope that person is perhaps watching right now, and you can contact us and say, "Yeah, when we do the next festival." I mean, I wouldn't do the whole festival that way because it kind of seems like it's cannibalizing the immediacy of the thing. But I am aware that there are a lot of people who can't get to the festivals, so it would be nice to include them. Anyway, moving on.
Moving on. This is Joe from Berkeley. I was absolutely floored when I saw Black Gravel at North City 18 at the Castro. Could you address the appeal of its different sensibility?
Well, it's dark. I mean, it is if people are unfamiliar with the film, Black Gravel, it's a German film from, I think, 1960. And you can get the film from Kino Lorber, which is how I learned about it. I am giving all the credit there to Brett Wood, who is the brains behind what Kino Lorber puts out. And he had discovered that film and contacted me and said, "Have you ever seen this movie? It's really intense." And that's how I discovered it. And actually, what we showed was a digital, was exactly what Kino put out. It was a DCP of the film that we got through Kino. I've never seen the film in 35 millimeter, but it's just fantastic. I liken it to someday we'll do a double bill of Thieves Highway and Black Gravel because they complement each other so well. Just because Richard Conte and I'm drawing a blank on the actor's name now, I'm embarrassed to say, the fellow who played the lead in Black Gravel is like the German Richard Conte. Wears the same leather jacket with the fur collar and everything. It's uncompromising. I mean, that's why I love that film so much, because it's historically significant, because it presents a very, very specific time and place, which is the rebuilding, America's involvement in the rebuilding of Germany as a line of defense against the Soviet Union. And it shows how it's all centered around the building of an American air base in this small town in Germany. and how so many people in Germany at that time were hustling in the black market and doing things illegally, including this truck driver who ends up getting involved with an old flame of his, who's now engaged to an American officer. And it's uncompromising, and it has everything you want in a film noir. The twists of the plot are they make perfect sense, and it's just this downward spiral and it has one of the bleakest endings I've ever seen in a film like this. So, what's not to like?
Yeah.
Did you see it when we showed it?
No, I actually missed it.
Yeah. I'll get you a copy of the film because it really is something. Not particularly a favorite of animal lovers. I have to warn people. There's a few things in the film involving animals that aren't enjoyable. Let's just put it that way. Anyway, and I see that Joe had also asked if there was a new edition of Dark City Dames coming out, and the answer to that is sometime. Yeah. The answer to that is yes, sometime. But I'm just torn because I can't decide whether I want to publish it myself or whether I want to take it to a publisher who would do it. And it's a lot of words, and publishers these days aren't too thrilled about too many words. Yeah. So I don't want to go with somebody that it isn't 100% committed to the book. So I may end up doing it myself, which is a nice position to be in, right? So, but it will be coming out. Okay. And then Michael, our fabulous correspondent in Post Falls, Idaho, wants to know if there's going to be another month of neo-noir on TCM this year. And then he suggests I show The Hotspot with directed by Dennis Hopper, with Don Johnson and a lot of cool people. Virginia Madsen, Jennifer Connelly, and I do believe that oh God, now I'm drawing a blank. Bill Sadler. Bill Sadler is in that film, who I absolutely love. It's funny, for some reason the name William Smith popped into my head, and then I couldn't get his face out of my mind. And it's like, William Smith, it's William Sadler, who is fantastic. So not this year. There won't be another neo-noir thing this year in 2022. It was very successful, and I will probably pitch the notion for another version of it in 2023, and we'll see how it goes. So, and a lot of people do separately send me things saying, if you do that again, could you show these? A bunch of films, So if you have recommendations or suggestions, feel free to email me or send them, to us here, whatever. Yeah, because The Hotspot, I really I love the soundtrack to The Hotspot, which is Miles Davis, John Lee Hooker, and Roy Rogers. Not the singing cowboy Roy Rogers, the blues artist Roy Rogers, and it's one of the best soundtracks. I just love it. So good on Dennis Hopper. He made a good one there. Also, I just want to. This just popped into my head. I do not want to forget to address in our little show here the passing of James Caan, which happened just yesterday as we're recording this show, and because he had kind of had chosen to not work as much in recent years. He'd kind of dropped off the radar a little bit, but man, when you look at the credits that guy amassed from the 1960s on, I don't know if there's anybody who had a better career in movies than James Caan. I mean, and great performances, and he was a good director. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie he did called Hide in Plain Sight. That was really, really terrific. And he also, and this question from Michael about Hotspot made me think of this because it's a neo-noir film that's one of my favorites that he was the star of. Not Thief, which I also love, but Flesh and Bone with Dennis Quaid and Meg Ryan, and James Caan plays Dennis Quaid's father. It's like Texas noir, absolutely fantastic. Steve Kloves was the writer and director of that. Long before he started doing all the Harry Potter movies. That's what Steve Kloves does now. And but he also did the Fabulous Baker Boys, which is another favorite of mine. But Flesh and Bone is fantastic, and it features one of James Caan's absolutely best, terrifying performance. And I highly recommend that movie to anybody who hasn't seen it. So
yeah, and the thing about him, like I just want to, he's an actor. I mean, if you think about it, he was in Thief, which is an amazing film, and he was fantastic in Elf. He is so hilarious in Elf. I mean, he really had an incredible range.
Absolutely. He had great comic timing, a real oddity on his resume, and a film that I loved when I was a teenager is a thing called Slither, which it sounds like a horror movie with snakes and everything, but it's not. It's about motorhomes.
Yeah.
Slithering along the rural highways of California. And it's a comedy caper film. And it makes me very sad because he was in it with Sally Kellerman, who also died earlier this year or last year or something. And they made a great comedic team. And the movie was W.D. Richter wrote the screenplay. And if you look him up, you'll see he's written several really interesting things. I think he also wrote Buckaroo Banzai.
Oh, and
and Howard Zeef was the director who started his career making TV commercials, but then he briefly was a film director and a really good one. He also did Hearts of the West, with Jeff Bridges and Andy Griffith, and Blythe Danner. Can't forget Blythe Danner. Just fantastic movies. And Slither was really, really funny, a very eccentric and weird movie with Peter Boyle and Alex Rocco and Alan Garfield. It's really, really good. So, and super hard to find. I've always thought about programming that, because people do ask, is there such a thing as comedy noir? And I always think about the stuff from the classic period, like Unfaithfully Yours and The Good Humor Man and stuff like that. But this is like comedy neo-noir. And I just love that movie. And it's the kind of thing that it will never get made again. Yeah. A movie like that will never get made again because it's so lightweight. And it's like 90 minutes long, and it was a feature film. And quite honestly, it got made because James Caan did it.
Yeah.
Right? Because he was a big star at that point. Because I think this movie was after The Godfather. And it was so interesting to me that he chose to do such a weird, eccentric, funny movie. It really showed there was a whole different side of him from stuff like The Gambler, which is like super heavy. He could just do everything. He was a great romantic leading man, like in Cinderella Liberty and stuff like that. And yeah, much more wide ranging than people realize. And of course, Brian's song, which is arguably the greatest TV movie ever made, really, in terms of the cultural impact, Yeah. So anyway,
can I tell my Brian song story?
You bet.
Yeah, and it actually involves you, and I told you at the time, but so it was TCM, Film Festival, and you were presenting Brian's song, and I actually have tried to get something else in. And the usher was like going, well, Brian's song is playing. I thought, well, Eddie's introducing it. I've never seen it. I kind of remember from being a kid that it was about this guy who died, and it was a really good movie and stuff. So I go in, and you gave a nice introduction, and the film started. And then I think at some point he coughed, and I was like, oh my God, he has lung cancer. Because my father had just gotten diagnosed with lung cancer. And like had just had his surgery, I think in February, and this was like in April. So of course, like freaking crying my eyes out during the whole thing. But it was a really great movie, but it was just like I just couldn't believe it, because I didn't know the story well enough to know that that's what his character.
So you saw Brian's song with absolutely no knowledge of what it was or what was going to happen, and the whole, because it's a true story. I mean, Brian Piccolo, the Chicago Bears.
I was remembering it was about the football. Like I said, I mean, I kind of remember the story from when I was a kid, because and I knew that he had died young, and that was the story. But no, I had no idea it was lung cancer, which was a lot for me.
Yeah. It's too bad that TCM, nobody could really coax Khan out to do anything like that at film festivals or something, and partly, his reputation, he was one of those interesting characters who had a reputation as being a real hard-ass tough guy, it's like George Raft. He liked to hang out with an undesirable element that he was very comfortable with. But everybody who knew him said he was just the nicest, sweetest guy of all time. But he didn't suffer fools or anything. And so I think people give up on trying to invite him to stuff because they're like, this could be like inviting a hand grenade to your show. And so, all the attention for that film was focused on getting Billy D. Williams, who's the co-star in the movie, which would have been awesome. And right up until the day before, he was going to appear. And then you have to kind of adapt, because at the last minute they told me there isn't going to be Billy D. Williams. You're on your own. There's no Billy D. Williams to carry you this time. So that was too bad, because man, I would have liked to have heard all the James Caan stories. But I have a funny feeling he's the kind of guy who tells them in the bar and not on stage, right? So anyway, just wanted to make sure we acknowledged the passing of a true great. I have no hesitation in saying that.
And I just want to say it one more time.
Since the next question.
Go see Thief if you haven't seen it. It's amazing.
Yeah, fantastic film. Great performance, but everybody in that film is great. But special mention to Tuesday Weld, she's incredible, just fantastic in that movie. The scene in the diner with her and James Caan is like an acting masterclass. That was just the best. And it's funny because it's early Michael Mann, and it's not like Michael Mann. I shouldn't say, people love his movies because they're so sleek and stylized, and, he pioneered the whole like music video style of filmmaking and everything. But he gets overlooked for being a great director of actors because he is. And that film is a testimony to it. All right. I think Michael snuck in another question. Yeah. And this one is for you, so I'll read it. Being a fan of Anders Thomas Jensen, has Anne seen Heaven in a Better World, the Danish film which won the Foreign Film Oscar in 2011? He didn't direct it, but he wrote the screenplay. What are your thoughts compared to his other works?
So that film was directed by Suzanne Bev, and the two of them have collaborated on a number of films together. And so I watched this when I had COVID. Because it's been on my list forever, and then I remembered someone had asked about it, so I thought, I'll just watch this and I'm sick. And I liked it. I thought it was good. It's around this. Ulrich Thompson is in it, and I would have liked to have more of him in the film. But his wife has died. He's brought his son back to Denmark, and the boy's having a really hard time adjusting. And he meets another boy, and he gets into a very violent incident. And so part of me is just going, could you put him in therapy? Because I mean, his mom's died, and now he's had this like pretty. I mean, the kid got really violent. Like, he really beat the crap out of this other kid. But it's about sort of the two boys' friendship, and then the escalation of events. And it was really well done. And the acting is incredible by the two kids. But for me, because I'd seen a number of the things they've done together, there's kind of a lot of stuff that they rehashed from other things. And ultimately, I think for me, their better collaboration is Braun Brothers, which is Nikolai Lake Haas and Ulrich Thompson again, and Connie Nielsen, who's amazing in it. And I thought for me, that was kind of a better film and had kind of tread a lot of the same territory. And I thought, yeah. So I don't know, but like I said, the performances of the two boys was incredible. And it's very compelling because it's scary when kids really start to act out violently.
Mm-hmm. You know? Oh my God. No, really?
Yeah.
How would we have any evidence of that?
Right. Yeah. And like I said, though, I also noticed in another film that they did together, though, it was sort of the same thing where I was sitting there going, it's great that there's this sort of breakthrough between these two family members when they're finally honest with each other, but this person has trauma and still needs to be in therapy.
Right.
This isn't going to fix everything.
Right.
And I kind of, yeah.
Now, forgive me for being a moron here, Anne, but Jensen is also the guy who wrote, I'm drawing a blank on the title, the picture, I guess a year or two old, with Mads Mikkelsen, where his wife is killed in the subway.
Riders of Justice. Yeah.
Riders
he also
of
directed
Justice.
that.
Yeah.
So his bread and butter is screenwriting. I mean, he's written, God, it must be at least 30 films. And Wilbur Tries to Kill Himself is one I highly recommend that he did, which was shot in Scotland and is very good. But then the stories, he has some stories that when he comes with the idea that he holds back for himself and directs those.
I see. Because I loved Riders of Justice, and when you were talking about this and the therapy for these kids, it reminded me of that film where they're trying to provide and like the gang of guys that he puts together. I love that character who like pretended to be the therapist, right?
Yeah, yeah, and that's interesting too, because like I said, it was sort of nice to see in one of his films, because of these other films he had done, acknowledge that no, sometimes you really do need therapy. And
yeah.
When Ted and I watched that, and they're being talked to after they come to identify, his wife and the girl's mother, they immediately offer that. They're like, you can have therapy and stuff, which is, of course, why later the daughter's really happy because she really thinks this guy's a therapist.
Right.
And his father is finally dealing with his stuff, which he is not.
He is not. He is preparing to take everybody down. That's a different form of therapy. Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, in Wilbur Tries to Kill Himself, Mads Mikkelsen has a small role in that, playing a psychiatrist.
Oh, very good. I don't know that I could talk to a therapist that looked like him. I think he would just scare you into straightening up, Yeah, he'd just have to look at you and just give you that Mads Mikkelsen. Get it together, man.
But he's actually which is so funny, because and he does get to do this sometimes in films, but whenever you see him like in person and stuff, he's like completely not like that. Like he's a really sweet guy and his goofy grin. Even it's acting,
right? I mean, that's like we were saying about James Caan. He can be terrifying on screen and volatile and hot-headed, and then everybody just says, "Oh, he's just a super nice guy," That's how it goes. All right, so now I think we're at number 6 now.
Okay, this is our friend Martin from the Netherlands. How do you rate the Hammett biopic by Wim Wenders? I'm not a great fan of his work, but maybe this is the exception to the rule.
If you're not a fan of Wim Wenders, you will not like the Hammett film. Also, Martin, it's not a biopic. It's a completely fictionalized story that uses Hammett as the protagonist. It has there's nothing true about the movie whatsoever. So it's interesting. I haven't seen it in a long time, but here are a couple of funny tidbits I can tell you about it. I was good friends with Joe Gores, who wrote the novel Hammett, on which that movie is based. And I think Joe had a second career just writing drafts of that screenplay. I mean, Joe is a guy who was so adept as a writer that he could crank out novels, and he did crank out quite a few great ones. And people may know or not that Joe was the guy who was chosen by Hammett's family to write the prequel to the Maltese Falcon called Spade and Archer, which is probably the greatest honor a crime writer could have, right? Is you're going to write the prequel to the Maltese Falcon. And it was good. Joe did it because he said, I knew it was a losing proposition, but I'll be damned if I was going to let somebody else do it. Right? So when Joe Hammett, Dashiell's daughter, said that she wanted Joe to write the book because she had so much respect for him, and he had also, like Hammett, he had been a private eye before he became a writer. That all came together, and Joe has told me many hysterical stories about what a long, convoluted process it was to write that screenplay. Wim Wenders has a totally different approach to movie making, in that I think he's one of these people that it's like, this isn't what I want, but let's keep going, and eventually I'll figure out what it is that I want. Because that was sort of like back in the day when you could take like a year to make a movie.
Yeah.
Right. And this was all produced through American Zoetrope with Francis Coppola's blessing and the whole thing. And I remember that the heyday of all that very well. But then years later, I attended Robert Osborne's film festival in Athens, Georgia, at Robert's invitation. And he had Fred Roos there, the producer, who produced Godfather 2, and he was one of the producers of Apocalypse Now. And, and I, of course, brought up Hammett. And I said, hey, do you have any idea if they're planning on doing a restoration of Hammett? And he looked me right in the eye and he said, why? That's the producer of the film saying that, right? So that may be all you need to know. Although I will say this, Frederick Forrest was perfect casting as Hammett.
Yeah.
I mean, it was ideal. And I felt kind of bad because, Fred Forrest was like almost like the acting mascot of that whole crew. I mean, he was such an important part of the Coppola stock company. And, he was in Apocalypse Now, he was in One from the Heart, and he was in Hammett. And they tried everything they could to make this guy into a movie star. And all those films were kind of jinxed in one way or another. I mean, not Apocalypse Now, but, One from the Heart just didn't come off, and nobody really wanted to see it. And, it has a soft spot in my heart because all the Tom Waits songs in it and everything didn't quite work, and Hammett didn't work for him.
Yeah, and I love Frederick Forrest in One from the Heart. I mean, he's fantastic, and it's a great performance, which made me really like the film. But yeah, and with Hammett, I think the one thing that kind of struck me, because it's Mary Lou Henner, I believe, that plays sort of the femme fatale in it. And the thing about that,
correct,
that I liked about that casting was she actually looks the way that God, the woman from Miss Waverly. God, I'm trying to remember. Bridget. She had so many names in it.
Bridget O'Shaughnessy.
Bridget.
Yes, Ruth Wonderly and Bridget O'Shaughnessy, and yeah. Which one is she today?
Yeah, but she actually looks the way that character looks in the book. The coloring.
Yeah. I mean, it was very interesting casting because at that point in her career, she was kind of just known as a TV actress. She had not. I don't think she had many feature film credits at all. But I admire it when directors just like, no, this is the person I want. This is going to be great. Anyway, I'll watch it again and form another opinion about it. But I knew so much of the background of what a star-crossed production that was, that it's always kind of colored, my feelings about the movie. Anyway, okay. I was able to catch up on some of the Film Noir Foundation interviews. Love the story you told, Eddie, about Lawrence Tierney. What a badass. Okay, so really what Steve in Exeter, New Hampshire is asking here, he says they did a Gloria Graham movie. Is it time for a take on Lawrence Tierney? Do you think, as a biopic or something? Steve, I will tell you, I have twice turned down offers to write Lawrence Tierney's biography because I felt there was no character development. So it's like and the same thing holds true of a movie. It's not like reading a biography. It's like reading arrest reports. and the problem was, of course, nobody wanted to do this book while Tierney was alive because they were afraid he'd kill them.
Yeah.
Right? If he didn't like what you wrote, there was a fair chance that he would probably kill you. So who wants that assignment, right? So there is a biography of Tierney coming out now. It's been completed. I had nothing to do with it. And I'll be curious to see what they get in it, because the challenge there is he was a disturbed, tough, really out of control personality from the time he was a teenager, and he remained that way until the day he died. I guess there's something miraculous about that, but the piece I wrote about him was kind of all I had to say about him. Yeah. Right? Otherwise, it's just who's got another story about Tierney's egregiously bad behavior. Yeah. And I don't know that makes for a good movie or even a good book. Although I don't want to put the curse on this person's book who did step up and write the bio, but to me that's more like a historical record so that people in the future can, when they hear about this guy, they'll have a book that they can reference that contains all the information. But I did not want to be the person to write that book.
Excuse me. This is from Harriet. Is the lost weekend a post-war noir? It is grim, upsetting, and a waking nightmare. The hero is destroying himself. We feel sick just witnessing Ray Milland drink and suffer until the spark of hope at the end. The book, which I have read, did end pessimistically. The Lost Weekend is on TCM right now. Could we say that this film is mainly a redemption story with noir elements? What is your evaluation?
I never consider it a film noir. I mean, I totally get why people might think that just because of the way the film looks. It's, to me, it's more a film about writer's block and the pitfalls of that and alcoholism. And my understanding and I could be wrong about this, but it all makes such perfect sense to me. Because that was the film that Billy Wilder did after Double Indemnity, after he had worked with Raymond Chandler.
Yeah.
And I think that The Lost Weekend was specifically Billy Wilder speaking to Raymond Chandler,
Yeah.
who was an alcoholic and an ill-tempered guy who like needed the alcohol to fuel his writing, and and bounced back and forth between the two. And so I think when the book was presented to Wilder, he chose to do it as like I will show that Chandler, that I'm going to show him who he is. And that's always been kind of my take on it. And I don't really think of it as a film noir. And yeah, it's a Hollywood kind of redemption story. But if you start lumping all the self-destructive movies in as potential noir, I don't know where it stops. Then the distaff version of it, Smash Up, Story of a Woman with Susan Hayward, is the female version of The Lost Weekend, and that's not really film noir either. And that's all. I mean, I like the movie. I think he won an Oscar for it, although I think it's far from his best performance.
Yeah.
Just because he had so many great ones. There's nothing wrong with the performance at all. But anyway, that's my Lost Weekend take. Got any opinions about that movie?
Yeah, I think it's a really good movie. I mean, once again, it's one of the things that I have with sometimes how addiction is portrayed is you'll have that sort of ending of, the person's like, okay, I'm not going to drink anymore. And it's like, it's like, okay, so you're going to AA or what? I mean, like there's so much of a process that goes around to getting so sober that it's not kind of like what I was saying before. It's sort of like when you have those end movies and it kind of ends with this breakthrough. It's such, so much more complicated.
Sure. I call that the undeserved redemption.
Yeah.
I don't like movies that have undeserved redemption where it's like 5 minutes to go, like let's wrap this up. But it's funny, and I understand what that was all about, because I know a lot of people, and I've certainly done it over the years, you complain about the false ending.
Yeah.
Right? Like this phony happy ending. It's ridiculous, and certainly you see too many of them in film noir. But as I get older, it's kind of interesting. I understand more the attitudes of the producers of these films, saying, "Look, these people just gave us their money,
yeah,
and now we're gonna send them home miserable." It's like, let's not do that, right? Because it almost is like on a business, forget art, on a business transaction level. It's like, I want them to come back and see my next movie. I don't want them to say, those are the sons of bitches that made that miserable film that depressed me for a week, Right. So they stick on this ridiculous happy ending, and it's like, there, maybe they'll forgive me.
Yeah,
Come see another one of my pictures.
But I've had the same kind of opposite problem, especially like with a lot of films like from the 70s. It's just sort of like, this didn't really need to be this grim. So I've definitely had that reaction too, where it's like, really, or they put in like, what I mean? They put in this like last twist and it's like something terrible. Yeah. And I'm just like, screw
but
you.
But see, it's all I find that all fascinating because, we look at movies differently because we watch a lot of movies, right? If you're seeing one movie a week and the one movie you go to see has this horrible downer ending, it's kind of shot your movie going experience for the week. When you watch as many movies as we watch, you get to see, in the words of my friend Marty Lurie and the way he looks at baseball, it's the mosaic, right?
Yeah.
It's like there are upbeat movies, there are downbeat movies, there are lightweight movies, there are heavy movies, and nobody wants a steady diet of just one thing,
Yeah, exactly.
And so that's why I love when they can pull off an upbeat ending and it's really effective. I like that just as much as the uncompromising downbeat ending. I like a movie that is true to itself.
Exactly.
So that by the end it's like, wow, that was bleak, but the whole thing has an internal logic, and it's like there was no way like the movie we were talking about before, Black Gravel. It's like you can see it spiraling down,
Yeah.
and the suspense is like he's not going to be able to get out of this, is he? I mean, it's just going to get worse and worse, and we love that. I mean, people who like noir, they love that because it's not real life, it's storytelling.
Yeah.
And those stories, when they ask me on TCM, like, what's your feel good movie, when you want to cheer yourself up, I said Taxi Driver, because every time I watch it, I think, thank God that's not me, right? I mean, I think a lot of guys of a certain age relate to Travis, when they're younger. It's like, am I ever going to fit in, or all this stuff? And then, you get through it, and then you can watch the movie objectively and say, whoa, man, this is a disaster. It's a different kind of self-destruction from the Lost Weekend self-destruction. Yeah. And then, of course, the ending of that movie is interesting because the irony is he gets away with it all.
Yeah.
Right. He which is terrifying now, because if you imagine Taxi Driver today, with all of the gun violence that's tearing this country apart, Travis Bickle doesn't look like such a lonely romantic character anymore. He looks like that screwball kid, in Highland Park. I mean, that's today's Travis, and that's horrifying. Anyway, I don't know why I got off on that tangent, but there you go.
Yeah, and I just wanted to do a quick shout out because we were talking about because I've been talking about how mental health stuff and is treated and things, and people just have this breakthrough and then that's it. Is what a great film now Voyager is, because you have this character on the verge of a nervous breakdown. And she is the world's greatest psychologist, by the way. I mean, and
pretty good. I think it's the close. I think it's the close that bring her back.
No, yeah. But what I like about it is later in the film, she's struggling again. So she goes back to the very nice asylum she was in because she's rich. But she goes back basically because she needs some support. And then she sort of mentors this young woman who's having her own psychological struggle. So you really, and that's what I like about the film. She's not magically cured when she walks out of that. Right. That's just the beginning, for her trying to get herself, a better life. But Claude Rains, seriously, that's who I want a therapist to be. I love Claude Rains so much in that movie.
It's nice to see him in a sympathetic role,
Yeah. Yeah. And very, very kind.
Yeah, and of course, then they would do their noir film together, Deception, right? Which is very underrated, I think. I think that's a terrific movie. Anyway.
It really is, and he's a bastard in that.
I mean, that's like the quintessential Claude Rains. Well, there are so many of those quintessential Claude Rains villain performances, especially in that era, like Deception and Notorious and The Unsuspected, and he was just as smooth as it got.
And here's the only character I liked in Notorious.
Yeah, which is kind of interesting. Well, let's not analyze that film because there's weird stuff going on there. It's like Cary Grant is like not a good guy in this movie at all. Yeah. And yet because he's Cary Grant, people just swoon. and think it's this great romance, and it's like
I
this
did
guy
not.
is just manipulating this woman, and it's yeah,
No.
pretty interesting. There's a lot to dig into in that movie. All right, we've got a question from Finland. That's pretty. Am I going to read this one?
Yeah.
Um, can you mention what your borderline film noir movies are that are close to being film noir but not? I guess that's what he's saying. Would be nice to hear your reasoning, also why you think they belong to the film noir genre. It's funny, because I do this thing for TCM. I don't know if Isaki is the name, I think, from Finland, has seen the stuff that I think TCM puts it up on YouTube now or something. All the noir or not
Yeah.
stuff that I do.
And I always repost it to our Facebook account, by the way.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, those are kind of fun because I think I've mentioned this before. I don't have any idea what the films are before I stand there and the producer throws titles at me and I have 30 seconds to explain why it is or isn't film noir. And of course it's all debatable. So I don't know. I'm trying to think off the top of my head, like what is something that is like borderline, something like the film we were just talking about, Deception. I think of it as a film noir. A lot of other people just see it as a romantic melodrama, which is kind of interesting because that seems that's the thing that blurs the line the most for people. Is I don't want to necessarily talk about noir westerns or any of that kind of stuff. It's the romantic melodrama where the emotions get out of control and something dreadful happens that people argue, is that really a film noir? I mean, you could say that about Mildred Pierce. You can say that about Humoresque.
Yeah, but those also are with female protagonists. That
Yes.
always comes up when it's a female protagonist. No one ever says that about a film when it's a male protagonist.
Yeah.
It's always when it's a female protagonist. Suddenly it's not a film noir, it's a melodrama. Sorry, I have feelings about this.
No, I completely agree with you. I've expressed that a million times. It's like, why, we've had, and way back when, like the second Noir City Festival, I think it was, we did all Stanwyck and Crawford movies and basically making the case, like, who's the queen of noir? Is it Joan Crawford or Barbara Stanwyck? And the purpose behind that was to show, like, how can you not think that these are noir films? That Sorry Wrong Number is not a noir film, or The File on Thelma Jordan, or Flamingo Road, or Humoresque, or all these things. So this is a little sideways from what was being asked, perhaps, but you do raise a very pertinent point that 9 times out of 10, I'll bet you that the people who argue it's not noir, they're arguing about a film that has a female protagonist.
Yeah, and the ones that you said that were like when they say, oh, it's a melodrama. But I guess for me with this question, I was thinking about Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which is like, I mean, it's a science fiction film, but boy, it's really structured like a noir.
Very much so.
It's told in flashback.
They won't believe me.
Yeah.
I mean, it could have been called They Won't Believe
Me. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And just, all the things that happen in it, and this like feeling of alienation. And I don't know, there's just like, you could make it in, yeah. And
it's very interesting. And the reason it's sci-fi, but it plays like noir, is because there's no sci-fi iconography in the film at all. It's all, It looks just like a film noir. It's just regular, ordinary daily life. It could be, Shadow of a Doubt, or, some small town noir film with these goofy pods, and it's interesting because I think there's nobody would call Phil Kaufman's remake of Invasion of the Body Snatchers a film noir.
No,
because it doesn't have the film noir look. That's a straight science fiction suspense film. So that is testimony to how much that black and white look of that era influences people's thinking when they think about things as a noir. Because I never, there are science fiction movies that incorporate other genres, right? Like Alien was a haunted house movie in outer space.
Yeah.
I mean that's what it was. And you see that a lot of times where it's like, hey, what if we just took this and put it in this other world, right? You see this with the Westerns all the time. Johnny Guitar and Stations West and stuff like, Rawhide and Ramrod. These are Westerns that are basic noir plots transposed to the frontier. And it doesn't, I get all of that, but I don't think of them as noir, because noir has a very human element to it. It's about people desperate people in dire situations, either trapped there or of their own making. And very often, like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, it's not of anybody's own making. It's an alien force coming down to do this. So that,
What about The Seventh Victim?
The Seventh Victim to me is totally a film noir.
Yeah.
Because they're a bunch of devil worshippers. They're just nuts.
Yeah.
But it's all human. It's like, and I could go down a slippery slope talking about this, like people who believe in superstition over anything else, that delusional aspect can turn out to be very, very noir.
Yeah.
And that's why I have people think of The Seventh Victim as a horror film.
No, it's not at all.
But it isn't. They only think that because Val Lewton produced it and he had done Cat People and all this stuff. But all of those are horror noir hybrids. And until you get to stuff that he did like Bedlam and The Body Snatchers and stuff like that, which is more or less straight horror movie stuff. But it's fun. It's fun to discuss all this stuff.
But even those films of his are much more psychologically driven too. I mean, that's why I'm saying, I think that's what makes him such an interesting producer of films, is that, especially like in the, like the original Cat People, I think one of the great things that he did in that film is you really don't know if it's in her head or not.
Right. Exactly. And look, you could do, a remake today of The Seventh Victim would be, very simply, it would be a young woman searching for her sister who's joined a cult. Yeah. Whatever the cult may be. I mean, that's basically what that movie is. It's figuring out the psychology of these cult people and who's in the cult and who's not.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what that movie is. And in that respect, it's completely timely. Of course, today they do it as a 10-part miniseries and not as a beautiful 67-minute B film. It's just so perfectly produced in every way. So, okay. You want to read number 10 there?
Yeah, and this is from Patty. Is there a recommended streaming service for quality noir films? I seem only to find Hitchcock and a few Humphrey Bogart items on Comcast and Netflix.
Well, Patty, come on. You're not going to get what you're after on Netflix. And, new stuff, yes, but the old stuff, no. I don't want to be seen like I'm a pitch man or anything. Obviously, Patty, you must know I'm on TCM. And there are noir films there. But yes, you're asking about streaming. So you need to subscribe to the Criterion channel. And I'm always amused that the Criterion channel has a noir collection every month. Every month they have a noir thing. And our good friend Imogen Sarah Smith has become like the queen of noir over on the Criterion channel, introducing most of this stuff. And I know as we speak, they have a color noir catalog or collection, I think they call it, where they curate these titles. And so it's got all kinds of great stuff in there, all in color, but they're pitching it as noir. But they do that all the time. And there's a bunch of, also this month they're doing a whole collection of boxing movies curated and hosted by Christina Newland, who has written for the Noir City magazine. She's a great film writer in England and a big boxing fan. So Christina has picked a really good assortment of boxing films, many of which are noir. And yeah, Criterion is what you need. And it really isn't that expensive and there you will never run out of things to watch. It's incredible. My queue at Criterion is probably like 60 films deep at this point of things that I either want to watch again or that I've never seen before. I won't admit to like what some of the things are, that it's like, I've never actually seen this movie. I better watch this.
Yeah, and I also wanted to say, join your local public library if you have not already. You can stream 2 services, Canopy and Hoopla, both of which you have a lot of classic films. Canopy actually will a lot of times has our restorations that we did through Flickr Alley. Also, there's a really great app you can use on your phone called Just Watch, where you can plug in the services that you have. And I mean, it's got a ton. It's just basically like a database. And what's nice is you can make one list where all the things you want to watch from all these different streaming services are one place. And then you can see which services it's on. And then also with that, it'll notify you if something's come up on your service that you're waiting for. So I use that app all the time because I was tired of having like queues in all these different places. Yeah. And it's really nice to have. And then also if you find like a director or something you're into, then you can look up all their films and put on there and see where you can stream them. So I find that really useful.
Okay, what is this called again? Because you just taught me something.
Just Watch.
Okay, Just Watch.
Yeah, and you can put an app on your phone, so that's really great because it's always right there. And like I said, I just love it because I like having all the films I want to watch like on one list and knowing where they are. So
yeah, fantastic. That is. And yes, thank you for mentioning Canopy. And I just very quickly want to give a shout out saying, don't watch these on YouTube services and things like that where they are pirating other people's films and uploading them to YouTube. YouTube has a horrible time policing this. Recently, the weirdest thing happened. I probably shouldn't even talk about this, but Flickr Alley had to justify its mission to YouTube because somebody complained that we had stolen the films and were showing them and we were the pirates. And it's like, no, actually, we're the ones who spent all the money to do the restoration and to put out the Blu-ray that we didn't want up on YouTube, because we do have a deal with Canopy where I totally support the library system. And if people who don't have the money to buy a $30 Blu-ray or something, then yeah, go to the public library and stream it through the library. That's the legitimate way to do it because we're supporting the libraries and they're supporting us. Nobody is benefiting from these pirates who take our films, upload them to YouTube, and then say, look at this great restoration I did of this lost film. If you like it, give me money for making it available to you. Those people are thieves. And they don't do anything. And they clip off our restoration credits and then run the movies, And it's, okay, that's enough. I'm going to stop talking about that now. Okay. Okay, Richard wants to know what cartoon, animated film utilizes a film noir story or plot the best in your opinion? Okay, so he wants an animated film. Well, obviously, Who Framed Roger Rabbit is, you know, that's the best one. But as an animated film, there is my friend Patrick Renaud in France wrote a movie called Renaissance that was a black and white animated kind of film noir science fiction movie that is pretty cool. So I'm sure many people haven't heard of that. But if you know how to spell Renaissance, you can just search for that and try to find it, because that was a very interesting piece of work. I thought it was good. That's the only one I got off the top of my head. Any others occur to you, Anne?
Yeah, I just watched one on it was either on, I think it was on Hoopla or Canopy. I can't remember which one, maybe in Hoopla, but it was a Danish film, which I can't remember.
What a surprise. What a surprise.
And it was animated, but it was about this guy who was, his sister had died, and he was picking up her daughter to come live with him. And his sister was a very famous porno actress. And so it's sort of about him actually literally trying to destroy all the recordings of his sister and stuff. And it would just, and then it's interesting because there's live action parts where you see these different videos, not just stuff of her performing, but also of, he used to like film a bunch of stuff. So it's just kind of bits and pieces of him growing up and stuff. And it is relentlessly grim. I mean, that is one of the grimmest movies, and the ending is so depressing.
Oh my gosh.
Oh God, it was really good. And him trying to deal with his
and what is it? What is it called?
Hold on a second. You distract the audience and I'll look it up really quick.
Yeah. Which is which over there on the couch? No, I'm that's a bad distraction, because then you have to look away. I'm going to say that's Charlotte in the front and Emily in the back. I don't know if that's correct or not.
You are correct.
Okay, very good. I'm learning.
Yeah, and the name of the film is Princess.
Princess. Okay.
Yeah. So if you
I doubt I'm going to be able to talk Kathleen into watching that one.
It's, yeah, and let people know. I mean, the shots of the pornography and stuff is fairly graphic. This is 18 years or old. I mean,
oh boy. Okay, so this is an X. This is in this country it would be an X-rated.
Yeah, they probably would give it, even though it's not like that. I mean, because the bulk of the story is him, but there's just these like things, and it's, you know, and it's disturbing.
And those sections are animated.
No, those sections are filmed. So the core of the story is animated with him going and finding his niece and bringing her home and all stuff that. But every once in a while, they'll show clips from these videos he made when they were just kids that weren't pornographic, or when they were teenagers, but then also her porno films, like clips of it come out, and all that stuff is all done with actual film, you know.
But with actors, or
with
animated?
Actors.
Oh, so that's weird, because I thought you were saying like maybe this guy thought I'm not going to subject the performers to this. We'll just animate the porn stuff, but it sounds like it's exactly the opposite.
It was the opposite. So it's kind of told an animated thing, and then you have these video segments, and then there is something at the end. There's a coda at the end, and that's shot in a regular film style, non-animated style, is at the very ending.
Yeah,
which was interesting. So so it's really
okay. So I'm adding that to my queue as well. Yeah. We'll see. We'll come back and we'll circle back to that, and I'll tell you what I thought of it.
Yeah.
Okay. This is you, number 12.
And this is Mark.
We're in the home stretch.
Mark from Scotland. I like reading classic noir fiction. Is there an underrated or underdiscovered writer from the 50s era you could recommend? And also, what about contemporary noir books? Have you read Charlie Huston's Hank Thompson trilogy?
Nice. A shout out for Charlie. I have to confess, I have not read Charlie's Hank Thompson trilogy, even though I haven't seen Charlie in a long, long time. But when I was just starting out writing crime fiction, I would see Charlie all the time because we would do all the circuit kind of together. And it's interesting because Charlie, when he started out, he was always a genre writer, but he wrote a lot of horror stuff, a lot of vampire stuff and horror novels and things. And then obviously he gravitated towards crime fiction from there. And I know he's a really, really good writer. I think Charlie and I, when Megan Abbott edited her book A Hell of a Woman, that was all crime fiction short stories with female protagonists. Uh, Charlie and I were the only two male authors in that collection. It's kind of interesting. And anyway, from the 50s, there's just, I don't know what people know. So if I started saying, Gil Brewer and Harry Whittington and, writers like that, I always have to keep throwing out Patricia Highsmith because she's so great. And as people know who watch this religiously, I will not rest until Patricia Highsmith is included whenever people say Hammett, Chandler, Kane, Thompson. You better put Patricia Highsmith in that group. I mean,
Cornell Woolrich.
Well, Cornell Woolrich as well. Yes, definitely. But it's Highsmith and Dorothy Hughes are the two female writers that have to be included in that discussion. As far as contemporary writers, let me look over here at my bookshelf. I love Denise Mina, Mark from Scotland. If you haven't read Denise Mina, Your Countrywoman, she's a Scot as well. She's fantastic, starting with the Garnet Hill trilogy, and then virtually everything she writes is super. Another person that I knew back in the day, like with Charlie, was Karen Slaughter. I like Karen's books, and she's had one of them adapted recently on television with Toni Collette called Pieces of Her.
Oh yeah,
that is based on Karen's novel. She's really great. There's just there's the one-off writers, and then here's somebody that I'm going to mention who is like a master that never gets talked about is Lauren Esselman. Lauren Esselman is so old school, and he writes westerns and crime, like he very much like Elmore Leonard in that respect. And Lauren has just been doing this for probably over 50 years, I would say. And he even has a series of books about a guy who finds and restores lost movies. I wonder where he got that idea. That's a character called Valentino, and he's written a whole series of mystery novels about finding lost movies. And then Amos Walker was his detective. They were all set in Detroit. And, there's no other way to describe Lauren as a writer and as a person than to just say he is completely old school. He works on a typewriter. Who knows where he is? You can't get him on the phone. Anyway, I'll stop there. Those are some of my recent faves, and also I can see their books on my shelf over here.
And I'll just chime in for books from the 50s. I would also include Charlotte Armstrong, who I think is a really great writer. And then for more recent crime fiction, I think the Dexter novels is some of the best crime fiction I've ever read, because it has the most incredible sort of authorial voice with because everything's narrated through Dexter, and it's an amazing. It's
Cool.
God,
I've
the
never
voice
read
is
one.
incredible.
I've never read one.
Yeah, they're good. I mean, just excellent.
That I see that the next question here is pretty much the same one.
Yeah.
Any recommendations for, say, 2 to 3 overlooked, lesser known authors of crime fiction this specifies whose work served as the inspiration for noir films. Well, we've said, Dorothy Hughes, Ride the Pink Horse, In a Lonely Place, The Fallen Sparrow. I think there's even another one in there that I'm overlooking right now. And Charlotte Armstrong, of course, had many things adapted, The Unsuspected and Talk About a Stranger. And her book Mischief, which was turned into Don't Bother to Knock, the great Marilyn Monroe film.
And then Thank You for the Chocolate, the French film, is also based on one of hers too.
What is it?
I think the film's Merci pour Chocolat, but it's based on The Spider's Web, which is Charlotte Armstrong.
Oh, okay. I haven't seen it. So, okay, good. That's two. That's two I got to thank you for, Joanne. There are like 5 or 6 Chabrol movies that I have yet to see that are in my queue on the Criterion channel. So that's
and the one I told you about is actually up on Canopy.
Okay, very good.
Library card.
Yep. Okay, I mean, people ask this question, it seems, every time. And so I will do my best to comb my bookshelves and pull out some other stuff. And my crime writing friends that I haven't mentioned, I apologize. I'll get around to you at some point, because man, I know a lot of people who write crime fiction. Krista Faust, my dear friend Krista Faust. To bring it back to the film you were talking about earlier, Krista has written a series of books with a character named Angel Dare, who is a former pornographic film actress who is now gets involved in mystery and crime stuff. And Krista is, let's just say Krista is the perfect person to write these books.
And she's also written for Noir City Magazine.
She has, indeed she has. Last one, you're going to have to read this.
And this is from our friend Alan in San Elsomo. George Burns often said, fall in love with something you do for a living. I have to assume you love what you're doing, Eddie, for a living. What are some of the jobs before, what were some of your jobs before you got into this line of work?
Bartender and writer. That's it.
Oh, wow.
That's it. There's nothing else. I mean, the writing thing, I could go into, boring detail about what that means, but all it means is I took home a paycheck because I put words together in a certain order.
Yeah.
That's what it means. What those words were about is kind of inconsequential. They've been about all kinds of stuff, sports and business and, a lot. I did not know there was a living to be made doing what I do right now. So this has been great. And I appreciate, Alan, you're saying that, because it's something that I tell people all the time, especially younger people who are money obsessed with how am I going to survive in this world. I got to find, because this is, everybody faces this when you're a kid and you discover that you're creative and you have a talent for something that involves creativity. It's almost a cliche that the world will try to beat that out of you, right? Because you can't survive doing that, whatever the fuck it is, right? Making music or dancing or studying art history, whatever it is, right? You're not going to survive doing it. And that's ridiculous. That's just ridiculous. If it is what makes you feel fulfilled, then that is what you are supposed to do. And it doesn't always work out for everybody, but the money will follow. And even if the money doesn't follow, so what? Because you're spending your time, which is more valuable than money. You're spending your time doing something that you love. And that is what inspires other people, which is very, very valuable. You know, I'm assuming, unfortunately, there's much evidence to this effect that a lot of people are very inspired by people who make piles and piles of money. I've never been inspired by those people. I've always just been inspired by people who actually create something, right? They've written a book. They make, you know, nobody impresses me more than musicians, you know. I mean, that's who I idolize, you know. I'm a that's it, you know. So uh, that's just the money will follow. Do what find the thing that really really makes you excited about waking up in the morning, and when you go to bed at night, that's the last thing you're thinking about is I'm going to do this tomorrow. Then you're going to be fine.
Yeah, and people have passions for all sorts of things too. I mean, like my dad talked about that. My dad was a geologist. I think I probably mentioned that before, and that was his passion. And he worked for an oil company, and you know, he was doing some kind of seminar training with the people that he worked with, and one of them asked him, "Do you ever just not want to come into work?" My dad was like, "No, I want to come to work every day," because he just really, you know. And I have, honestly, like I have a day job on top of my other things, and you know, I actually like my day job. It's really rare for me not to want to go in there. It's actually because it just uses a different skill set that I have, you know, so, and it frees me up to be able to do the other things that I'm passionate about, because I'm a kind of girl. I'm sorry. I want a retirement fund and healthcare and enough money to live in San Francisco because I'm insane and I live in San Francisco.
Yeah. Well.
But that is for me to live in a city. Like that's something that makes me happy. I don't want to not live in a city. So you have to trade off for the things that make you happy.
That's very interesting. What you're saying about your dad and his being a geologist and in the sciences and things. I know that people, I mean, I'm in the arts as opposed to the sciences, but they are so similar because it's a process of exploration.
Yeah.
Right. And I love that. And I love people who are passionate about the sciences because they're trying to solve something. They're trying to figure something out. It's like a detective story, you know, it's like we're going to figure this out, how this works and all this. I love that, you know, which is why I get so upset with the anti-science crowd, because it's like, I find it very ridiculous and boring when people think they have the answers and it's all based on nothing. And they're just so proud of themselves that we have figured it all out. And it's like, well, like in the meantime, here are these people dedicating their lives and all their enthusiasm to actually figuring stuff out for the betterment of the world. And I totally get it. How could you not be excited to get up every day and do your work, you know, as opposed to thinking you already have all the answers and that's all there is to it.
Well, yeah,
hell with those people.
When Mount St. Helens was going to blow, because that was predicted by geologists, because you know they were Washington State is a very seismically active area, so it has a really good school of geology at the UW. But what's kind of interesting about it was these people were just sort of like, well, they're basically trying to argue what the blast zone was going to actually be, and try, because people, you know, city fathers and stuff didn't want to clear everything out. Is what it came down to and stuff. And it was really funny to me, you know. You saw this one guy, Harry Truman, that insisted he was going to stay there, you know, which is a true story. The guy was just like talking to the press, and he wasn't going to leave just because a bunch of geologists said. And it was just like, geologists are not like radical people. Talk to geology. Yeah. Geology is a very sort of, you know what I mean? These are not, sure. There's not a lot of leeway. I mean, they really know what they're talking about, and because so many things are predictable, like earthquakes and stuff like that. They're not always predictable. So yeah, if you've got geologists telling you this is definitely going to happen, it is going to happen, so. But people don't want to listen,
interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, these people that are doctors and nurses in the sciences, I mean, these guys go to graduate school and stuff. This is like a lifelong education just for people to come along and be like, I know better. And it's like, okay, where's your medical degree?
Well, that always, I hear you. And it always amuses me because, and then we'll bring this in for a landing. And, one of the Film Noir Foundation's biggest supporters was a fellow named Joseph McLaughlin. And, he gave a lot of money to the foundation over the years. And he was a cancer research specialist. He was at the Institute of Epidemiology. And, after I met him, I started seeing his name popping up everywhere. You'd read a report on, pancreatic cancer or something, and they'd be quoting Joe, right? And it was so funny because all he ever wanted to talk about was movies.
Yeah.
Because that was his release from the world of death in which he lived, right? And so he just wanted to talk, and we would have these long dinners and everything, where it was just his release from all of that. And I had no idea that he did this for a living until the first time I met him. And he went on and on about, what you do for a living is so great. And, I'm so envious. And you have this great gig that you're doing. And I jokingly said, hey, Joe, stop. You're embarrassing me. It's not like I cure cancer. And he said, no, that's my job. That was fun. And sadly, Joe passed away a few years ago, and I was honored to actually speak at his memorial service. And not a single person there knew who I was.
Yeah.
Because it was like Joe's private little thing, and his wife, invited me to come and speak because she knew how important this whole thing was to Joe. And God love her, she maintained his endowments to the foundation after his death. Jean is the greatest. So anyway, on that note, shall we close this episode out? It looks like Charlotte has just tucked her head under, and she's like, are these guys ever going to stop talking?
I just wanted to quickly, a couple things. One, NOIR CITY Chicago is coming in August. And I don't know, we're just now we don't have any definite things about it yet, but you can always.
Well, we do have, I have more definite info for you.
Okay.
The 26th of August, which is a Friday, through the following Thursday night, I'll be there to host the opening weekend. Alan Rohde will come in on Monday and take it the rest of the way. I do know that on the Saturday that I'm there, I will be presenting a B Noir marathon. 8 films. 8 films in one day. Of course, most of these are between 60 and 70 minutes long, so we can fit them all in. And as of now, the plan is we'll create some kind of, like our Noir City passports, that you'll have to have punched for every movie. And then if you turn the card in at the end of the night, you'll get some kind of prize for watching all 8 films. We haven't figured out what the prize is yet, but knowing me, it'll probably end up being like a free cocktail or something, but we'll see.
You got something for the non-drinkers, Eddie.
I know, but I have no idea like how many people will take us up on that and watch all the movies. So I don't know I haven't figured out what to do as a prize yet because I don't want to get stuck. Like, what if there's 100 people that do it? You know, you have to have 100 prizes. There may only be 5 people that do it all. So we'll have to figure that out. But it'll be fun. I like flying by the seat of the pants and stuff like this. So, and we do have all of those. All of those are all lined up. So the whole festival is booked except for the opening night because we're trying to get a special guest who shall remain nameless, and it may work out. It may not. So we always have to be flexible. And then after that we have Detroit in September, which is just a 3-day festival, which I will be. I'll be there for the whole thing, and Washington D.C. as usual in October. That'll be my birthday during the opening of that festival, and that's it. That's what we have booked for now. And of course, Noir City will be back in its 20th anniversary incarnation in January.
I can't believe it.
Yeah, I know. 20 years. 20 years. 2003 was the inaugural festival, and it's now 2023 in January. It's hard to believe.
Oh my God, my. And I just want to remind everybody, if you enjoy the show or you're into the fact that we restore films, you can contribute to us, which would be very nice, at filmnoirfoundation.org. Also, if you contribute $20 or more and sign up on our email list, you will get the digital version of Noir City Magazine included in that. And that comes out about once a quarter.
Yeah, we try to get once a quarter, but everybody has stuff to do. So sometimes we fall off the pace a little bit, and we end up getting out 3 gorgeous issues a year instead of 4. But who tells time anymore anyway, right? I am not a slave to the calendar, except when I have to go shoot stuff for TCM. Then I am, but otherwise it's like, it is what it is, right? Or do a Noir City Festival. So I hope everybody keep the questions coming. There's a lot of good stuff this time around, and I love how we always manage to detour off into other things, Anne.
Yeah.
So
I didn't mean to start talking about geology. I don't know.
No, I find that it's so interesting. We need to do some geology noir. You know, Ace in the Hole is a little bit of geology noir, but and this is for you. So it'll be it'll be a great reason for us to plan on getting together soon, so I can give this to you. And I want you to understand, I've already done the hard work because I unwrapped it. and believe me when I tell you, that was not easy to do. I was trying to be delicate because I didn't know what it was and I didn't want to wreck anything. But man, you should wrap it up in newspaper and then stumble into my office at the daily job. That's it. And I can precisely. I hand it to you and then I'll keel over and drop dead. Perfect. Okay, it's a date. We'll do that. And just one more thing, if you enjoy watching us on YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel and like the videos. It does help us out. Give us one of these. Yeah, give us one of those. Okay, guys. There it is, just like that. Okay, and great talking to you, and we'll see you again soon. I know that for a fact. We will.